Welcome to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast, Fantasy Football for the Average Joe. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny. How are you doing this fine day, Dr. Frankenfurter?
I'm doing fantastic, John. Fantastic. After a really good fantasy week, a little bit tough week for the Browns, but let's table that. But, very good fantasy week, man. I was 2 wins and 1 loss, and the 1 loss, I had a really exciting trade. So I would say it was a very good week. What about you, man?
That's nice. What was your trade? Why don't you lay it out for us?
Sure. So this is a 14-man double flex league. Okay, so not 1 flex, not a super flex, 2 flexes. So very, depth is an issue for almost all teams. So I actually traded Dalvin Cook and DK Metcalf for Jamar Chase, Ramondre Stevenson, and Gabriel Davis. And I think it's very interesting with the team that I already have, that being Brandon Cooks, that being DeAndre Hopkins that will be coming back, James Conner, and honestly Josh Allen. So I wanted that Gabriel Davis stack. And I think that Jamar Chase gives me a little bit of lift over that of what DK is, obviously. But yeah, man, I just didn't want to do the Dalvin Cook bullshit anymore. I was over it.
No, I hear you. That's actually a fair trade. Look at you.
Well, it's like this perception of me as a trade raper. I mean, everybody just sees you got to start. It's
First
sales
of all,
101, man.
It's not a perception, Frankie. When you pull up trade rapers in your neighborhood, the little red dots all over your house has a red dot on it. Okay. You are a trade sex offender. There's no question about it. You've earned that badge.
I just like to win trades. I like to win.
Of course you like to win trades. That's a good trade. I like that, man. I like that way to make a move and keep things going. You were 1 and 2, right? You really needed some upside, and you got Jamar Chase on there to give you some upside. I like that. Gabe Davis as well with the stack. Really nice. I lost a game to Anthony Sestone in our Superflex League, the guy who does some great music and bumpers for us on the podcast. He beat me by 2 points because of the goddamn San Francisco defense. Can you believe that?
25
terrible.
points.
Horrible way to lose. But, I'm second highest point man in both leagues. I'm not freaking out. I'm 2 and 2. I'm right where I want to be. Let's get going, man. I love it. Hey, crazy week of football, by the way.
Crazy.
I mean, we started off the week with the situation with Tua, which was really weird and really scary. Tua's out, man. We've got Teddy Bridgewater playing now. We had the Brownies had a heartbreaking loss, just couldn't finish the game. We had the double doink. Can we talk for a second about the double doink? Does that remind you of my brother Sean or what? Totally. He says doink all the time. I've never heard that as a verb before. And Sean was, doinked it. And, so the double doink, all I thought about was Sean. So, hey, shout out to Sean Hickey with the double doink this week.
John, it reminds me of that guy who was like, I don't know if you've ever seen that clip. It's like the chubby Hispanic dude that's smoking like a joint or something. And all he says is, I'm smoking the doinks, man. The doinks. And it's just like, it's the most random fucking video, but it's hilarious.
Smoking the doinks. All right. Well, let's get through this podcast so maybe we can do some smoking the doinks afterwards, huh? Yeah. All right. Hey, that'd probably make the podcast better. So please enjoy. Smoke some doinks and watch the podcast.
Yeah,
I'm sure
you go.
We're not promoting drug use, just FYI.
Definitely
anywhere
not.
Where it's illegal, like both of the states that we live in.
Like 100% to both the states we live in.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Really appreciate it. Don't forget, you can follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Frankly Fantasy Football. Please subscribe. Please share it with your friends. Also on Twitter at Frankly Fantasy F. Frankie, I wanted to start things off. We've got today's Fire and Ice segment is brought to you by Caddyshack. And I found, coincidentally enough, my brother-in-law sent me a video. This is my little nephew, Xander. This is a couple of years ago when he was a baby. And I had to bring it up because it was relevant. I got to play this just for everybody. It's super, super cute.
That is awesome.
I was going to do a clip of the gopher, and I thought I'll just use Xander. So, hey, shout out to Alex and Jen and to Xander Bew, who I know is not allowed to listen to this podcast for sure. That's awesome, man. Hey, we've got a lot of things that happened this week, a lot of news to break down, and we're definitely going to have to look at some waiver wire pickups for some of these losses.
Big time.
Yeah, let's get to the news and notes, man.
Absolutely lost. Flip out.
News and notes.
All right, some real tough ones here, man. Javonte Williams, he was a second-round pick for you, running back for the Denver Broncos, tears his ACL. It is confirmed, and he is out for the season. This one hurts fantasy owners big time. Now, why don't you explain a little bit what's going on with that backfield, Frankie, and what we're looking at as far as fantasy value here?
John, it's going to be a clusterfuck of a situation, to be completely honest with you, man. Javonte Williams, for everybody that was following, he's the guy. He was going to be the guy, especially with the fumbling issues with Melvin Gordon. This was detrimental. So now you're looking at Melvin Gordon, who's had a very pedestrian year, who's a good running back. He really is. But this year he's been fumbling the ball way too much. He hasn't been very efficient on the ground when he's gotten the ball. So you have Melvin Gordon, man. So then you look at, okay, who else do they have? They have Mike Boone. For those that remember, Mike Boone came from the Vikings. He was very good as a third running back, as crazy as that sounds. Not often do you remember a guy like that, but he was solid. He was behind Alexander Madison and then behind Dalvin Cook, so he never got to see the field. So he's interesting, John. But then you layer in the third back that they picked up off of a practice squad of the Saints, and Latavius Murray, guys. He, to me, is the most interesting part of all of this. Think of this guy who wasn't even on a team, then gets signed by the Saints practice squad because Alvin Kamara is hurt. He gets elevated, comes in, and has over 50 yards rushing and a touchdown with barely no play. So now you incorporate him into a Denver backfield. John, it's going to be very convoluted, and it's going to be something that we all need to keep our eye on, because right now there's a lot of people saying Melvin Gordon's a shoo-in. I don't think so. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this pans out, especially with them signing that of Latavius Murray.
Yeah, I think you can start Melvin Gordon with pretty good confidence this week. But, I mean...
moving forward...
Yeah, I mean, moving forward, yes, but he's had 4 fumbles. He's lost 2. Javonte was getting like 73% of the carries. So I don't know. I mean, I think you can start him and see, but I think they are going to work this into a 2 to 3 headed monster. It just only makes sense to me. But if you're the Melvin Gordon owner, he just got a lot more valuable for you for sure.
Got a lot more. John, question on this though, real quick. I don't want to spend too much time. What does this do for the passing offense? In your mind, does this elevate Russ? I mean, Russ has been shit all year outside of maybe one game. I mean, do you find that, hey, we're not going to be able to rely on the rushing attack anymore to the level of what we thought? Does this finally open up Russ?
Yeah, I think it does a little bit. It has to. Javonte was really their pass catching running back as well. I don't see a lot of passes going to Mike Boone and Melvin Gordon, too often in this offense. So I think they are going to pass the ball more, and it should give Russ a little bit of a boost. They're going to run, and they're still a running team. They're going to run the ball with effectiveness. I just don't know exactly who it's going to be and how many carries is going to be distributed between the 2 or 3 guys. But yeah, I do think it does boost Russ just a little bit. And they seem to be coming around a tad. Russ is kind of getting his shit together a little bit. Had a good game this past game in fantasy. The receivers are Judy's healthy again.
Sutton's looking nice.
Sutton looks real nice. Yeah. So I do think it helps a tad with the passing game. All right. We lost another top running back here, a high draft pick, Cordarrelle Patterson, running back for the Atlanta Falcons. He is on IR. He's going to be out at least 4 games after undergoing a minor procedure on his knee. This one hurts fantasy owners as well. Got to get on that damn waiver wire this week. Tyler Algier, rookie running back, is the backup. Something else to consider, Damian Williams is eligible to return from IR in week 5. So this very well, I think Tyler Algier for this week is an absolute slam dunk. Pick him up off the waiver wires. We'll talk about him here in a little bit. And I think you can start him. But there will probably be a timeshare, if not Damian Williams possibly getting more carries, depending on how Tyler Algier does with this. You know what happened here, Frankie? This is the second goddamn time this has happened to me. Our 14-team league, there's nothing on the waiver wire, so I'm just picking up lottery tickets. I'm picking up backup running backs and just stashing them, waiting for an injury. Well, every week I drop my kicker and I pick up another backup running back just to see what happens. So on Sunday mornings, I have to drop one of these guys so I can pick up a kicker, you know? I dropped the wrong guy. Again, I dropped Tyler Algier. The week before that, I dropped Khalil Herbert. Oh, I'm just sitting here going, oh my God, I could have an embarrassment of riches at the running back position. And I totally fucked it up, man. It's just random, but you got to buy those lottery tickets, man. Scratch those things off. I know.
John, and one other call out too here is don't sleep on Caleb Huntley. Don't sleep on him, man. He came in signed from the practice squad. 11 rushes, over 50 yards, looked real solid. He could be interesting for the Falcons.
Good call. I like that. Jonathan Taylor. Can we officially say that Jonathan Taylor is the biggest bust of the draft so far?
No, I would not say that so far. Me personally, I would not say that so far. Week 4, no, I don't think we can say that. I would put that maybe towards Kamara, maybe towards Dalvin Cook even, who is, ranked 26th, and Alvin Kamara is ranked 60 because he's been out. So no, for me, John, I would just say it's too early to tell, but he has been a bust. I don't know about the biggest bust.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to keep monitoring that. Jonathan Taylor has not done a lot for you so far. He's struggled. He had an ankle injury. He left the game, looked pretty bad at first. When they saw that, I thought maybe it was a high ankle sprain. That could be a month that he could be out. Scans on the ankle are clean, though. That's good. He's had limited practice. But coming out as of Tuesday afternoon, Coach Frank Reich saying he's really not ready to play right now. So it's not looking good this week for Jonathan Taylor. Who do you think is going to get the majority of the carries in that backfield? Is it going to be Nyheim Hines?
It's got to be. It's got to be Nyheim Hines. And I think they're going to really rely on Matt Ryan as much as possible and really spreading the ball around. But yeah, I think it's Nyheim Hines that's going to be slated to take the bulk of the load.
All right. We'll monitor Jonathan Taylor's status. It does not look good as of Tuesday so far. Treylon Burks, wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. He's going to miss some time. He's got a turf toe issue. Really good-looking rookie. He's had some looks. Hasn't really had a breakout game yet. But that's going to be interesting there. I think that's really going to boost Bobby Trees in this offense. They need some targets to throw the ball to. Bobby Trees has been getting more and more involved. Robert Woods, I think that's going to boost him here. What effect do you think this is going to have on the Tennessee offense?
I think they're going to go back to the well with Derrick Henry. I think that they're going to have to continue to run the ball more than they ever have. Here's the other thing, John. I think the Bobby Trees is a great call out. I really think he could shine. The other guy that might actually benefit from this is Dontrell Hilliard. Guys, for those of you who don't know, he's the pass-catching back who's definitely boom or bust week to week, unless, God forbid, Derrick Henry goes down, then it's his show. But it could be interesting. We might see a couple more drawn-up plays for him just to get Tannehill clicking early. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. But I definitely think Bobby Trees is ready. He's ready to take the load. He's already taken the load. We've seen him do that at the Rams, so it's definitely going to be his show.
Okay, Steelers making a change, man.
Wow.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are going with their rookie quarterback, George Pickett, at
Kenny
QB.
Pickett.
Or Kenny Pickett. I'm sorry, Kenny Pickett.
You're confused. George Pickens. I was going to say.
Why did they do that? They had to draft two rookies, and they had to have the fucking name Pickett and Pickens. Right. Seriously? All right, I don't care what his first name is, George or Henry or whatever the fuck. Pickett is at QB for the Steelers. Talk to me a little bit about what this does to the Steelers. They have a brutal schedule coming up. What is this going to do for that Steelers offense, do you think?
I think it's going to benefit. I mean, John, I don't think it can get worse.
That's
the God honest truth. I don't think it can get worse. And what we've seen from Kenny Pickett, especially in college last year, he's dynamic. He's way more of a dual threat quarterback than that of Mitchell Trubisky. So we're going to see him run. Actually, he had 2 rushing touchdowns on Sunday. And so that's going to be interesting. I also think that this could be a rise of Pickens. And the reason being is because they had.
Why do you have to make it so confusing? Okay, the rise of the receiver is going to have better opportunity. Is that what you're saying?
That's right, the other rookie. And so I think now, because they've worked so often in the offseason together, I think we could really see this come into fold. And I truly believe this in my soul. I only think it can help the Pittsburgh Steelers getting this kid acclimated, because he is a better talent than that of Mitchell Trubisky.
Okay, well, let me tell you how this is going to benefit the Pittsburgh Steelers here, Frankie. Let's look at their next couple of games. This is what the rookie's getting thrown into with a shit offensive line. At Buffalo, Tampa Bay,
Awful.
Miami, at Philly, and then a bye. I mean, if this kid makes it to the bye, I'll be impressed. It's got to be the most brutal stretch
gauntlet, man,
for any team. I mean, those are some of the best, top 5 defenses in the league. That's nuts.
So, John, it's interesting. Like talking about that stretch, that's atrocious. That is one of the most difficult stretches I think I've ever heard. And it kind of goes like chicken or the egg. It's kind of like, hey, do you want to get this kid ready and prepped and throw him to the wolves a bit, because you still have a chance in the division, knowing Mitchell Trubisky is awful. Like, he's been playing terrible. Or do you still run with Mitch through the bye week, knowing you're probably going to drop 3 or 4 of those games? And so it's weird, man. It's a weird situation Tomlin and all of them are in. And so, I hear you. I think it's probably the worst 4-game stretch of all time that you could go against for this season, at least. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, all right, let's see what you got, Pickett, Yeah,
I mean, I guess the mentality is they plan to kind of lose those games with Trubisky anyway. Right. So at least you're going to have some opportunity to get experience, because this kid does go through these games, and if he plays somewhat well and at least learns from the defenses he's going to be looking at, maybe it does really help him out down the stretch when it counts. They have a bye week. They can settle down a little bit. He's going to be reviewing films 24/7. It's going to be interesting. Yeah, but it makes me nervous as hell for all of my Steelers. I was really hoping, honestly, selfishly, in my league, I've got Najee Harris, and I was looking at him to blow it up, for the Jets, and then try to trade high on him. He did not blow it up, unfortunately, so he doesn't have that big a trade value for me at the moment. But something to look at. If you can get something for Najee that can really help your team, that's a brutal stretch. It's going to be tough to want to start Najee against those teams as well. All right, next on the list, Jahan Dotson, rookie sensation. He's been great. Wide receiver for the Washington Commanders. The Manders. He may miss 1 to 2 weeks. He's got a hamstring injury. Play that accordingly. They've been not playing well. Carson Wentz has come down to earth a bit. This team's been a little bit in shambles, but maybe they can get it going again this week. But Dotson will be out for the next 1 to 2 weeks. And then Tua. We led off with Tua. Let's finish the news with Tua. He's ruled out for sure for week 5.
Good.
Teddy Bridgewater to get the start. I don't really have any commentary, anything to say about what happened with Tua until, the investigations and things come out. Looks bad. I'm glad he's okay. It was scary as hell when that happened. Let's talk about a second, Frankie. Give me some ideas of what are you thinking with Teddy Bridgewater. You've got Tyreek Hill. You've got Jalen Waddle. You've got the running backs there. This team has had some serious offensive fantasy output. How does that change with Teddy Bridgewater, or does it?
I don't think it does. John, I don't think it changes that much. I mean, Tua was playing at an extremely high level. I want to make sure I give credit, due to him, especially, it wasn't just the guys around him. He has to get them the ball. But if we remember back to when Teddy Bridgewater was at the Saints, John, with that of MT, et cetera, I mean, he was 5-1, 5-0. He played extremely well. And he's been more of a journeyman, but, I don't know if he would have been a journeyman had he not gotten hurt at Minnesota years ago. So I think that he kind of steps in and it should be fairly seamless here, man. And again, this is the best supporting cast he's ever been around. I mean, you're even going back to the Saints and Denver and Minnesota. This is it. And so, I mean, he didn't miss a beat, man. Coming in 193 yards, a touchdown. He threw a pick. But, I mean, man, I think that he's going to hit the ground running. And I would be shocked if anything otherwise, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I agree. He's got good pieces here. Teddy Bridgewater in a super flex, double quarterback league. I think he's got value. We saw Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill still had a great game. He had like 10 catches for 160 yards or something like that. So he had a great game. So I don't know that it's going to hurt him. I don't know that there's going to be enough fantasy value to spread to everybody now. Waddle may be back and forth between Tyreek and Waddle. If Tyreek doesn't get that big bomb, his value goes down. So it might go back and forth, where before I think they could support both Waddle and Hill having great fantasy weeks. So just keep an eye on that. You may have a little up and down with Waddle and with Tyreek Hill. All right, man, let's get to Frankie and fire. Let's hit the ice. Let's see who we've got. The first guy on ice, over the wall with the Wildlings. This one hurts me. I've got him in 2 leagues. I was super high on him, but this offense has pissed me off, man. I think somebody's been on ice from this offense every goddamn week so far. I'm talking about Michael Pittman Jr., MPJ. I love him, but he really hurt me this week. 3 for 6 for 31 yards. Less than 5 points. Are we freaking out now? We've got 4 weeks of data on the Indianapolis Colts. Are we freaking out on all the Colts at the moment, Frankie?
I'm not. I'm getting closer to the panic button. I think so is the owner. From what I've heard, the owner is
Jim Irsay.
Yeah, definitely threatening Frank Wright, Matt Ryan, the GM. So I think that the owner is. But from a fantasy perspective, I'm not ready to completely hit it, the panic button here, man. I definitely think that it's stressful, and I definitely think there's issues that need to be ironed out immediately. But yeah, it's been tough sledding for sure.
Very tough sledding. All right, let's get to another guy here. He was in our fire segment last week, and here he comes on ice. You're gonna have that with some of these number 2 wide receivers on teams. It's gonna happen, especially with speedsters. Small guy like this, Devontae Smith, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. He was 3 for 4 for 17 yards, only 3 points. I'm not worried about Devontae Smith. I think he's a guy you can start. Again, I think it's one of those things when you've got 2 high-powered wide receivers that can put up serious points. They may alternate back and forth of who gets more looks. They're going to focus. Guy blows up, they're going to focus on him the next week and maybe take him out of the picture, and it kind of the pendulum may swing a little bit there. Yeah. All right, Frankie, why don't you talk about, I know how much you love the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why don't you talk about the next guy here?
God, I love this ice one. Guys, we're talking about Chase Claypool here. He was 0 for 2. He had 2 targets and 0 catches, which is a beautiful goose egg for my Steelers fans out there. So, guys, I love everything about this. Keep being on ice, baby. Keep being on ice.
Don't be mean. Don't be mean to our Steelers fans. Come on. All right, here's a big one here. Darren Waller. It's interesting that he really has not been involved. I mean, you remember drafting Waller, and he was a top 3 tight end. He was getting like double-digit targets. He was the man there. Not the case anymore. I was kind of worried about this with Devontae Adams coming in, and Derek Carr's playing well and spreading the ball around, and they've got other options with Hunter Renfrow and Mac Hollins with Renfrow out. Darren Waller was 3 for 5 for 24 yards, 4 points. No bueno. All right, Frankie, let's get to another guy here.
Yeah, John, another guy that's on ice. We have Tony Pollard for the Cowboys. He really ran the ball. He's been running the ball fairly well all year, and then this week, not so much. 8 rushes for 6 yards. He also had 1 catch on 3 targets for 2 yards, equating to 1 point on
1
ice.
Point. 1 point. And Tony Pollard, I think you might have been in my hit-its last week, I think, or I liked him, or maybe it was the week before. Here's your 1 point right here, buddy. There it is, okay? You like that? Thanks, Tony Pollard, for making me look like an asshole. This guy, I'm panicking. I'm done. This guy is an asshole to me. I was high on him, and he just hasn't produced. He's on my bench. I'll sit on him. But I'm not starting this guy until I see some serious production from him. Allen Robinson, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Rams, 2 for 6, 7 yards, less than 2 points. Are you panicking on him? Because I'm
100%.
done. I'm done.
100%. This, I wouldn't even say it's a panic. It's almost a hatred at this point towards him. I mean, John, after what he did last year and the year prior in fantasy football, we both had him last year. You traded him to me and I went through the hell and like all this shit. And so, yeah, no, definitely, man, I'm panicking on Allen Robinson. It's just not looking good.
Yeah, if you're in an 8-10 man league, he doesn't need to be on your roster whatsoever. 12, 14 team league, keep him on your roster. This team's in shambles. We're going to talk about the Rams a little bit later, but the team's in shambles at the moment. They're going to have to figure something out, and Allen Robinson needs to be a part of this offense for it to be successful. All right, let's get to another guy here. Mandrews, Mark Mandrews. He wasn't really much of a Mandrew this year or this week, was he? 2 for 5 for 15 yards, less than 3 points. Don't expect that out of Mark Andrews. Frankie, we've talked about Sunshine here last week.
No kidding.
He was on fire, man, and now Sunshine's on ice. What happened to Sunshine?
He was frozen solid, man. And against that Philly stout defense. I mean, that is due to Philly's defense. And the Jags, for those of you listening, they were coming into the week the number one offense, scoring offense. So take it for what it's worth.
By the way, when I say Sunshine, we're talking about Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
That's right. So Trevor Lawrence, guys, he was 11 for 23, only 174 yards. He did have 2 touchdowns, but he had 1 pick, 4 fumbles, and sacked 4 times. Guys, that equates to less than 3 points, excuse me. So Trevor Lawrence, you are on ice, baby.
Yeah. Hey, Frankie, here's another Steelers player. Why don't you take this one since you already gave a bunch of shit to Chase Claypool. What's going on here?
Gladly. Yes. Yeah. Deontay Johnson, guys, he had 2 carries for 11 yards, which is kind of weird. He did carry the ball a few times. He also had 4 targets. He had 2 catches on those 4 targets for 11 yards, which, guys, equates to 3 points. Again, we're talking half PPR. I do think this will probably improve, John, with Kenny Pickett at the helm. But my God, was this guy frozen solid this week.
Frozen solid. Let's get to some more Rams here. Let's just go right down the line. We should have just talked about all of them, but the whole fucking team is frozen, man. Matthew Stafford, let's start right here. 32 of 48 for 254 yards. Okay, not bad, You go, okay. No touchdowns, 1 pick, 1 fumble, 7 sacks. He had negative points this week, Matthew Stafford. We do negative points for sacks, so that's why he has negative points. But my God, that 49ers defense just rolled over Matthew Stafford this week. All right, let's talk about I want to talk about all these guys, and then I want to hear your opinions on what the fuck is going on with the Rams. Cam Akers on ice as well. Basically, the whole offense, except for Cooper Kupp, is on ice. Cam Akers was 8 for 13 yards. They could not run the ball. 1 point for Cam Akers. This 1 point for Cam Akers. Frankie, what's going on with the Rams, man?
They're struggling, John. There's no way, shape. It's just it's a shit show, is what it is, and it starts with the offensive line. They look absolutely terrible. I mean, you mentioned Matthew Stafford throwing the ball 48 times. You throw the ball 48 times and still complete 32, which is decent, but it's only for 250 yards. That's not good. That's not that good. And then Cam Akers, dude, you finally get your shot again, and you have 8 rushes for 13 yards. John, it's an absolute shit show, and it really does go back on really McVay, Stafford, like what's going on there. You guys are at the helm. You need to figure this out. So for me, man, I'm nervous. I'm nervous for this Rams team because they're in the NFC West, and their schedule doesn't get easier. Right. So these are the teams that they're playing consistently. They're got to see the 49ers again. The Seahawks are playing extremely well. It really is going to be tough sledding for these guys. So, yeah, man, I'm definitely nervous for these guys across the board.
Yeah, did you see them fighting on the sideline with each other?
Yes, I did.
I mean, the frustration is palpable with the Rams right now. That's a smart team. McVay's a very good, smart coach. I think they're going to get it figured out, but in the meantime, I got to sit these guys for a little bit, or at least be very, very cautious based on matchup. All right, man, why don't you talk about the next couple of guys here?
Yeah, man. So we're going with the running back here, James Robinson for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had 8 rushes for 29 yards and a big old fumble. So that equates to less than 2 points, guys. And this is the lowest that he's had all year. So, maybe it was the matchup, maybe not. But yeah, needless to say, James Robinson, you are on ice, good sir.
Oh, yes. We got a couple of receivers here too, Frankie. One that kind of hurts my soul. Why don't you talk about those guys?
Yeah, so I'm going to lump 2 in here, man. So first and foremost, Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry. He just has struggled getting it done this year so far. He had 2 receptions on 6 targets for 15 yards. That's all he had, man. And that's even with Dotson going down. Just throwing that in there, which equates, guys, to less than 2 points, man. So Terry, not doing too hot. And this next one, John, I have a feeling this is the one that you were talking about.
Yeah,
Amari
this one hurts my soul.
Cooper. Amari Cooper won 1 catch, 4 targets, 9 yards, guys, less than 2 points for Coop. So yeah, really tough sledding, and boy, was he on ice.
Oh, yeah. A couple of tight ends here, and I bring up tight ends because these were high drafted tight ends. Kyle Pitts, we're playing this game with him. This guy is just permanently fucking frozen right now. Kyle Pitts, 1 catch on 4 targets for 25 yards. He had 3 points. I mean, what do you do here? I mean, you can't do anything. You have to start Kyle Pitts if you've got him on your team, and you've got to hope that he catches more balls. What's happening? Why is he not 4 targets? You would think he's going to get a lot more than 4 targets. I don't get it.
It's crazy.
I thought he was going to absolutely just toast the Browns.
I did too.
Yeah, and I didn't even see him on the field hardly. Didn't even notice him watching the game. George Kittle as well had a rough week for you. 2 for 4, 24 yards, 3 points for George Kittle. When you've got these guys, Frankie, on your team, it feels like you're looking at your scores and then you see Rodney Dangerfield on a boat coming right at you and you're like, holy shit. Drops the anchor, just sinks your ship, and you just want to fucking cry.
What the hell are you? What? Back! No! Oh, which way is backward? Stop! 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 Okay, drop anchor! Hey, you scratched my ankle!
Just sitting there crying, watching the water fill your boat. You're like, fuck. Oh, unbelievable, man. All right, let's get to fire. Frankie, who was on fire this week? We got a couple of Detroit Lions were the top 2 fantasy point scorers for the week. Who are they?
John, we're looking at, I'm going to lump them together. Jared Goff and TJ Hawkinson, baby. Jared Goff threw 39 times, completed 26 of them for 378 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 pick for 41 points. 41 points. And here, TJ Hawkinson was one of the guys that was going nuts with him. He had 12 targets, 8 receptions, 179 yards, and 2 tutties from your tight end. Guys, you were flaming hot, on fire, couldn't be put out for the Detroit Lions.
On fuego, man. Yeah, how's that trade looking right now with Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff? Jared Goff has played better than Stafford this year.
It's crazy.
Isn't that interesting?
Last year they looked like geniuses. This year, Goff's looking great. Goff's a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah, it's very strange, but you got to love it, man. All right, let's go to, I'm going to hit a guy that you said to quit on last week. I got to give you a little shit. I agreed with you. I didn't think it was a great matchup, but the guy came out and proved us wrong, man. Josh Jacobs on fire this week. Wow. 144 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, and 5 for 31 through the air. 34 points for Josh Jacobs. He's on fire. Now, Frankie, this next guy, I skipped him so you could talk about him because I wanted to give you some shit, but then now you get some credit, my friend. So hats off to you. Talk about this guy on fire.
I appreciate that, man. This was the start or the stream of the week for quarterback. I put my money where my mouth is, dropped Kirk Cousins in one league, picked up this guy. And this is Geno Smith, John. Geno Smith threw the ball 30 times, completed 23 of them for 320 yards. He had 2 passing touchdowns as well as a rushing touchdown, John, and 49 yards rushing. John, that equates to 37. You heard that right. 37 points from Geno Smith.
Gotta love that. A Geno. It's a Geno.
It's a Geno.
Good call on the stream, Frankie. Well played on that one. All right, I'm going to talk about Rashad Penny. Huge week. He helped me win this week, so I appreciate it, Rashad. 60 yards rushing with 2 rushing touchdowns, 6 for 49 through the air with a receiving touchdown as well. He just did it all. 31 points out of Rashad Penny. Frankie, this next guy is kind of your man crush. It's not quite as R-rated as my man crush with DK Metcalf, but talk about awesome, excellent Austin Eckler.
John, Eckler went absolutely nuts, and I apologize if I'm not looking. For those of you looking, I want to pull this up real quick. This is pretty crazy, man, because Austin Eckler did something fabulous. This guy carried the ball for 13 times for 60 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. He then caught the ball 6 times for 49 yards and had a receiving touchdown. Guys, Austin Eckler continues to be a top 3 back from the last 2 and now being 3 years. John, I've been tooting his horn. I've been touting his horn. And is that even a word? I'm just touting as shit. I don't even know.
Every single episode, Frankie, you say some crazy ass phrase that means nothing. It's like you're Eastern European, man. Like, get out of the city.
Get out. Well, you know what? I'm keeping Austin Eckler in my city, John, because I'm riding that boy high. You are on fire, baby.
Yes, he was. All right, it's good to see this guy back, man. He's my age, and it's nice to see a guy come back here. I thought he was hurting. He was done. There's rumors going around everywhere. I don't know what the fuck's actually happening. Tom Brady. It's amazing what you can do when you actually have receivers to throw the ball to, isn't it?
No shit.
Yeah. He got his receivers back this week. 39 of 52. He threw the ball 52 goddamn times. 385 yards and 3 touchdowns. 30 points for Tommy boy. All right, Frankie, who's the last guy on fire here that's above 30 points?
Oh, yeah. We got Miles Sanders for the Philadelphia Eagles, baby. He had 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, and got a little bit in the receiving game, too. He had 2 catches for 22. What's that equate to? 30 points. Miles Sanders, you continue to be on fire.
Oh, yeah. A couple of special mentions here I want to bring up. Russell Wilson with 28 points. Patrick Mahomes with 27 points. Mike Evans throwing up a 27-point banger. Justin Jefferson, welcome back to the top, buddy. 27 points. Jamal Williams, Frankie, I believe he was one of your hits last week. 26 points. San Francisco 49ers defense on the list, 26 points. Fuck you, Sistone.
I was going to say, that's got to hurt.
God damn it. Dameon Pierce, Frankie, I know you've been high on him all year. 26 points out of him. Justin Herbert with 25. Kyler Murray with 25. Josh Allen, 24 points. Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, both with 24 points, looking good. All right, man. When you're on fire, you've got these guys on your team, you're ready to win, you're real close, and then it just blows up. It's like the end of Caddyshack when the putt just drops in, thanks to Bill Murray and trying to kill the gopher. So Stone, I hope that's how you felt this week, man. I love the cheesy 80s movies too, and all the clubs go coming out, bursting out of the bag, and you gotta love that, man. It's so much fun. All right, Frankie, let's get to the waiver wire. Please give us some help, man. Who are you looking at on the waiver wire? Who are we spending on to help cover some of these injuries here, man? Why don't you get right into it?
Definitely. So, guys, we mentioned a few of these guys earlier just because of some of the injuries, but I really want to go through them for a second. So, Mike Boone is definitely top of the list here. Javonte going down, Melvin Gordon fumbling issues. He could be very interesting. And I'm going to lump in Latavius Murray here as well, John. I mean, he signed with Denver, again, as I mentioned, after going 11 rushes, 57 yards, and a touchdown with the first game with the Saints. So I think he's going to provide immediate value quickly. So those guys I'm going to be spending some money on this week for sure, knowing Javonte is down all year. This isn't a rental. This is a actual play for the rest of the year. So spend some money.
I agree. In my mind, I'm going to try to pick up both of these guys and get them on my bench to see what happens. You might be able to get lightning in a bottle.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
John, and the next two I'm also going to lump together here, and we did touch on both these as well. It's Caleb Huntley and Tyler Algier. So the reason why I like Caleb Huntley, even with Damian Williams coming back, is because the dude was signed after coming up from the practice squad and looked incredible. Looked truly incredible. He had 10 rushes, 56 yards, and a touchdown. Guys, that's 5.6 yards a carry for a guy who was a no-name nobody. And so that equated to 12 points this past week. But then you can look at Tyler Algier, right? He had only 11 touches as well, but he had 104 yards. He just didn't have a touchdown. So I think with those two, and then you mix in Damian Williams, somebody's going to come to the surface. Somebody's going to rise above the rest. And I think once Cordell Patterson comes back, right, after 4 games being on IR, he'll come back into the mix and be the starter. Unless one of these guys, there could be more of a timeshare like what we saw with Javonte and that of Melvin Gordon. So I think that these guys, I wouldn't spend nearly as much as what I probably would on a Mike Boone or a Latavius Murray, but definitely spend some money here because you could always flip one of these guys for potential trade bait before Cordell Patterson comes back. So, John, I really, really do like those two as well. And then here,
there's no real quick. Let me touch on that.
Yeah.
There's also no guarantee Cordell Patterson's coming back in 4 weeks.
Fair point.
He has to be out at least 4 weeks by being put on the IR. He could be out longer, so we're not really sure yet. Also, when it comes to spending money on these guys, take a look at what their schedule looks like here. At Tampa Bay this week, not a good matchup. That's really tough. At home against San Francisco. I mean, we just saw with San Francisco just curb stomp the goddamn Super Bowl champions last week. And then at Cincinnati. I mean, that's a tough run defense as well. So I would think about that before you're spending the money. Now, if you need guys, you're in a deep league like our 14 team super flex, I'm going to spend some money on these guys. Okay. Carry on, please, sir.
John, that was a great call out. Definitely pay attention to whenever you guys are looking at waivers, definitely pay attention to matchups too. That's so big because you're not just picking up a guy to pick up a guy, right? You're picking up a guy for that week or maybe the longevity. So great call out, John. John, the last guy that I wanted to, is another guy we actually touched on. It's Teddy Bridgewater. He's playing at the Jets. Again, when Tua went out this past week, he ended up with 193 yards, a touchdown, and interception, which equates to 14 points. Mind you, he didn't even play the entire game. So he looked really, really nice. And again, playing against a Jets team that's giving up some points. So this could be really, really interesting for Teddy Bridgewater.
Okay. All right, let's get to our Hit It and Quit It segment. This is where we do our starts and sits of the week and a couple of guys that we love and a couple of guys that we do not love. Let's hit it and quit it, man. All right. Yeah, I love that song, man. I like to play that song and just walk down the street like I own the fucking place,
groovy,
man. Oh, yeah, it's so groovy. Let's take a look at how we did last week, Frankie, with our hit-its. All right, my hit-its were Ramondre Stevenson at Green Bay. He had 11 points. I think that's pretty serviceable. And then, of course, one of the weirdest episodes we've ever had was DK Metcalf, my man crush. I know. I don't have the picture. I should have pulled it up. Hey, either way, you could say, I don't care if you thought it was weird and I got super, super gay. It's fine. 19 points at Detroit, okay? My man crush came through. Frankie, yours were pretty good as well. Jamal Williams, man, filling in for DeAndre Swift, getting the full workload. That's what happens. It's 26 points versus Seattle. Jamal Williams played great. And Khalil Herbert with 11 points at the Giants. All right, Frankie, let's get to your first hit it. Who are we going with here, man?
John, for my first hit it, I'm going to go with Dameon Pierce. I've been talking him up all year long. He's finally getting that due. He continues to shine in this Houston offense, guys. He only had 14 rushes this entire game and had 131 yards, John. The other thing that I absolutely love seeing, and I don't care the yardage after what I'm about to say, he had 6 receptions for 8 yards. I don't give a shit about the 8 yards. I care about the 6 receptions. That's fantastic for a running back. So what does that equate to, man? That equates, and he had a touchdown, by the way. That equates to 26 points. So now he's going into a week where he's playing Jacksonville. And Jacksonville, for those of you who don't know, just gave up 210 rushing yards to the Eagles. Now, I'm not saying that the Houston Texans are on par with the Eagles, but what I am saying is you stack up Miles Sanders and Dameon Pierce, I don't see that much of a difference between where Miles Sanders is at and where that of Dameon Pierce is and what he's been able to do. So, John, I'm really hitting the shit out of Dameon Pierce this week in a very good way, man.
Hit that shit, baby.
Hit that shit.
All right, my first hit it. And these hit it's, by the way, we're not going with obvious players. We're going with guys that you're trying to decide, should I play this guy or should I not? If you want to know if you should start Dalvin Cook or, Derrick Henry or something, listen to a different podcast, okay? Right. We're going to talk about some guys that you might not have that much information on. My first hit it is going to be Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert actually really impressed me in this last game. He was 15 for 69 against the Bengals, which is a good defense. 2 catches for 12 yards receiving. He is very clearly the lead back in this offense. I thought that it was going to be Chase Edmonds coming into the season. Raheem Mostert is the number one. They bring in Edmonds on the goal line, which is annoying for Mostert owners. But Mostert's getting the work. With Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback, I think they're gonna run the hell out of the ball. I think they're gonna have to establish the run. They're gonna have to get it going. And Raheem Mostert is that guy. He got 72% of the snap count last week, so he was in the majority of the game. He's a guy who can pop off a 50-yard touchdown at any time. One of the fastest running backs in the league. So this week, I feel real good about playing Raheem Mostert. Get him out there.
I like it, man.
Frankie, who do you have here, buddy?
So for my second hit it, John, I'm going to go with Allen Lazard here. So they're playing against the New York Giants. And the really interesting thing is Allen Lazard's been banged up all year. Right. And then you hear Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson's been banged up, but he's going to be coming back. Then you have Sammy Watkins, who's still on IR, who eventually will be coming back. But as of right now, Allen Lazard, in my opinion, has cemented himself as the receiver one in this offense. Now, it could fluctuate week to week, but for this matchup, I really like him, especially after that synergy that he had with Rodgers against New England. Here's what he did. He had 6 receptions on 8 targets for 116 yards, guys, which equates to 16 points and a half PPR. That's phenomenal. That shows me that he's being targeted often. And so, guys, when looking at this type of offense and looking at the defense that the Giants have, they're going to need to throw the ball because A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, as great as they are, the Giants have done a fairly decent job at run stopping. So I like the chemistry that Aaron Rodgers continues to build with Lazard, and I think he could be a slam dunk hit this week.
All right, that's beautiful. I am going to go a little unusual for me. This is not a guy I like. Typically, it's not a guy that I don't draft him. But the numbers don't lie, man. I mean, you got to look at what's going on here and be, completely objective if you can. Devin Singletary, running back for the Buffalo Bills. He's getting some play here. He's currently the running back 23, so you can comfortably have him as an RB2 or a flex play here. Last week he had 11 rushes for 49 yards rushing, 4 catches for 47 yards receiving at Baltimore against a very good defense right now. 88% of the snap count. He's the guy. It is a little convoluted in that backfield, but he's really establishing himself as the primary weapon in the backfield. 11 targets in week 3, 5 targets in week 4. That's what I like about Devin Singletary. If he's going to be getting targets like that out of the backfield, I mean, it really kind of looks like a Tony Pollard, Kareem Hunt type stat line with the 50 yards rushing, 50 yards receiving, and a handful of catches. I love that. I think you could start him this week at home versus Pittsburgh. I think they're going to have a big lead early, and I think Singletary comes in for some cleanup duty as well. All right, Frankie, let's see who we're going to quit this week. Who are you quitting?
So, John, this week, I'm jumping on the band. Actually, I'm just going to lump. Is it okay if I just lump both these guys in together? I really, really want to. Is that okay, or should I wait?
Absolutely. Lump them in, man.
It's in my soul. It's the Rams. It is going to be Allen Robinson and Cam Akers. Guys, they are playing Dallas's defense. Please listen to me. Do not start these guys against Dallas's defense. I promise you it's not going to work out well. And the reason why I'm saying that is Allen Robinson, couple quick interesting facts, he's barely cracking top 100 receivers right now. That's insane. Top 100. He's barely cracking it. He had 2 receptions for 7 yards last week, and he's not doing well. You walk into a Dallas defense who, mind you, is phenomenal with Micah Parsons. We just saw Matt Stafford get sacked 7 times against San Fran's defense. Just wait till you see what Micah Parsons does. It's going to be gross.
Licking his chops, man.
It's going to be bad.
Yeah.
And then Cam Akers. Guys, he is currently still being outsnapped by Henderson. And what he did with that 8 rushes was terrible. It was awful. It was non-existent and didn't help anything. Here's additional reasons why I don't think you should start him. Guys, Dallas's defense held Antonio Gibson to under 50 yards. They also held Saquon Barkley to 81, not even on the same planet in terms of talent. And then Mixon to 57, not even in the same realm as Cam Akers, to 57 yards. Guys, all of those running backs have all outplayed Cam Akers by tenfold this year. So now, as I mentioned, you're also looking at Henderson. So Henderson already outsnapping him, as I mentioned before, it just doesn't bode well against this team. So guys, for me, and John, I know I kind of jumped the gun on wanting to combine them both, but the reason being is because I truly believe this is not the week. Do not do this, guys. Do not start these guys. I'm quitting on both of Cam Akers and Allen Robinson this week, man.
Well, I would say I disagree with you, but I don't, because my quitted is Matthew Stafford, the quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams. I think you need to sit these guys. Cooper Kupp is really the only thing you can start. If you have to start Higbee, maybe at tight end, because the tight ends are just a fucking nightmare. But Matthew Stafford versus Dallas, negative points last week, teams in disarray. We've talked about this. Matthew Stafford's the quarterback 22 right now in fantasy football. Ugh, it's gross, man. Injuries to the offensive line, I think, are the big issues right now. He was sacked 7 times. The offensive line is just in shambles. Until that is fixed, I'm sitting Matthew Stafford until I see more. The second quitted I've got today, we've talked a little bit about this as well, but it's Deontay Johnson at Buffalo. You've got a rookie quarterback you're throwing out there in Buffalo. Oh, I don't like that at all. Right now, Deontay Johnson, he's the wide receiver 40. You know, that doesn't give you any confidence going into an at Buffalo matchup. 2 rushes for 11 yards, 2 catches for 11 yards, only 4 targets. It's the least amount of targets he's had since, I think, 2019. I mean, it's really, really bad. Don't start Deontay Johnson this week unless you've got, if you've got better options. Please sit him. All right, man. All right, get your dancing shoes ready here, buddy, because we got some flex appeal. Oh, Frankie. Oh, he's a big dumb animal, isn't he, folks? All right, man. What do you have going on for your flex appeal? Who do you like in the flex this week, baby?
John, I'm really digging these flexes. And the first one is Adam Thielen. He's playing against Chicago. This past week, he had 8 catches on 9 targets, 72 yards. He continues to see targets. And this is something that's been very interesting because, quite honestly, we saw JJ do very well. We saw KJ Osborne still getting his, right? And now we're starting to see Adam Thielen continue to be who we always thought he kind of was. John, the other reason why I like him this week is because he's had 17 targets in 2 games, the last 2 games. So against a Chicago team that's actually been okay against the run, but they have been getting torched from a passing perspective. So I think that all the attention is going to be on JJ, and I'm really liking Adam Thielen to come in here and maybe throw up a very similar stat line.
Okay, I am going with my first flex appeal. I'm going with Curtis Samuel, wide receiver for the Washington Manders. They're playing Tennessee. This is not a scary defense. Nope. Tennessee D is very, very weak. People have had their way with them. Curtis Samuel, believe it or not, is the wide receiver number 15 so far this year. His targets in the first 4 weeks are 11, 9, 10, and 7. He's being heavily targeted. So if you're in a PPR or half PPR format, I think he's a great play this week in the flex. Dotson's out, so he's going to have more opportunity for targets this week. Play Curtis Samuel in yo flex. All right, who else you got, Frankie?
John, for my second flex appeal, I'm going with Breece Hall here, man. He continues to shine, and it's really cool to see. I mean, he had 17 carries last week, 67 yards, 1 touchdown. That equates to 15 points, and that's fantastic for a flex guy or even an RB2. I mean, shit, you're taking that all day long. He is playing Miami this week. So it is a fairly tough defense, but I think it's a nice opportunity for Breece Hall, who's starting to slowly run away with that starting top back duties. The other thing that's really good, guys, is he is getting targeted out of the backfield. It's not just Michael Carter now. And so if they start getting behind, it's not just going to be Batman and Robin with, Michael Carter coming in and taking those receiving yards like that of a Chase Edmonds to a Mostert type of thing. I kind of am starting to see Breece Hall as this 3-down back and maybe more of like Michael Carter spelling him. So for this specific week, man, I think that this is a very interesting opportunity for Breece Hall to continue to build on a really, really nice rookie season so far.
Good call. I am finishing this up with Bobby Trees, Robert Woods, wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. This one scares me because I've been saying that you can't start the guy. Well, right now, I'm willing to take that chance. He's at Washington, very, very vulnerable defense right now. With Treylon Burks being out for a few weeks, it's basically a necessity that Robert Woods gets the ball. He's going to have probably 40%, target share at least in this offense. He had double-digit fantasy points in the last 2 weeks, so he's been okay. I think with the increase in targets, I think Robert Woods could be a pretty safe play. Hopefully he gets into the end zone to help you out here. All right, man, let's cross the streams.
We'll cross the streams.
Excuse me, Egon. You said crossing the streams was bad.
Cross the streams.
All right, Frankie, you nailed it last week in our Crossing the Streams. Yeah, let's review that a little bit. You had your Geno. It's a Geno Smith. 37 points you had to stream him. Tyler Conklin with 7 points.
Great.
And the Cardinals defense was your stream of the week with 17 points, man. So hopefully you helped somebody out there. What is going on with the streaming this week, Frankie?
All right, man. Well, I'm going to go bottom up here. I'm going to start with the defense. So I'm going to go with Green Bay versus that of the New York Giants. I feel like with Danny Dimes getting hurt last week, it's the Tyrod Taylor coming in and not looking super great. Outside of Saquon Barkley, there's really not a lot going on in that team, man. So I think Green Bay's defense gets it done in a big way against the Giants this week. From a tight end perspective, John, I'm going all in on Dawson Knox against the Steelers. Now, again, this is a stream, guys. So for Dawson Knox, yes, he's boomer bust week to week. There's a lot of different mouths to feed. Gabe Davis is back. He's healthy. Stephon Diggs, of course, absolute superstar. You also have Devin Singletary, John. I love your call outs. So yeah, there's a lot of mouths to feed, but I do like Dawson Knox, especially around the red zone. I think he could be very interesting. And then lastly, John, I'm going with Teddy Two Gloves, man, as the quarterback. For those of you who need a quarterback to stream, again, it might be a good time to make this move. They are at the they're at the Jets. Miami is playing at the Jets. They have the team. Teddy Two Gloves has the receivers around him. He has the running backs, the offensive line, the defense to help. I think that this could be very interesting. Again, he came in and had 14 points last week, didn't even play the full game. You extrapolate that out, John. I mentioned, last week, Geno Smith, probably around 17 to 25, had 37. I could really see Teddy Bridgewater being around that 17 to 21 mark this week, knowing that the Jets have given up quite a bit to opposing quarterbacks. So go with Teddy Bridgewater and a stream option if you need it.
Teddy Two Gloves. All right, stream him. All right, anything else there with the streams, buddy?
All tied up, man. All tied up.
All tied up. All right. Great show. I hope we gave you guys some good knowledge, some good tips on some of these guys that can be a bit confusing on whether or not you should start them or sit them or not. You know, we started with the Caddyshack thing, and I think we're going to end with a little combination of Caddyshack and Family Guy. You got to love it. They've always got something for something, for everything.
What did you do?
He was supposed to get away. It was going to be harmless 80s fun.
You killed the gopher!
He's all right?
No, he's not all right.
We're all going to get laid?
Damn it, Peter! Stop saying blandly upbeat things from the movie. This has to stop.
You're right. Man, and I was so sure that stuff from the 80s would still play the same today.
Thank you, Peter Griffin and Family Guy. You've always got something for me to play on the podcast. All right, I want to thank Anthony Sistone for beating me last week, you son of a bitch. Thank you for the music and everything you send us, man, for the podcast and your help. I want to thank Liam Hickey for helping us produce the podcast. Don't forget, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube at Frankly Fantasy Football, and you can send us messages on Twitter at Frankly Fantasy F. Frankie, I love you, brother. Good luck in week 5 this week. May the fantasy gods smile upon you.